Welcome to Follow Your Joy podcast, where intuition is the doorway to your elevated creativity, more joy, and prosperity. I'm your host, Marla Diane, and I've been living an intuitive life for decades as a creative. That translates to transforming creative entrepreneurs' lives for over 27 years through two businesses as a business strategist and a life designer. And prior to that, an entertainment publicist and talent manager. Follow Your Joy is an entrepreneurial resource for creatives sharing their challenge to victory stories through the lens of listening to their intuition. It's time to make joy your inner GPS for life and business decisions rather than lean on your logic and reason first. You'll not only be following what is most authentic for you, but you will live the beautiful life meant just for you. Want to learn how to access, trust, or up-level your intuition? Join me in the conversation to find out how. Hello, everybody. Goodness. So, who does not love travel, and especially to a foreign country? Yeah, I think y'all know, at least those of you that have been around a while. I Follow Your Joy community. You know my love of travel, so you're going to super love my guest. So hang tight, I'm going to introduce her. But let me give you a little intro here, and that is the powerful feminine energy of life. And energy is etheric, it doesn't mean physical energy, okay? So the powerful feminine energy of life is fun, play, imagination, adventure, wanderlust. Okay, there's a masculine, feminine. Those of you that have been around a while, you know that platform. Because given that transformational platform, okay, in which I not only live by but coach, is redefining women's success metrics. Okay, meaning what you live by that is dictated by not only your values, by what you define as success. Yeah. So with my high achieving women, success, no fault of anyone's, was programmed as masculine, no gender, and masculine meaning we're brought up in a society that structures and measurement and logic and outside resources and intellect and strategy and hustle and massive action and make it happen and function. Shall I keep going? All right. All those things to move the needle. However, we women are not wired like that. Right? We're not wired that way to succeed. We're wired to have a blend, of both with feminine wisdom, intuition, receiving, right? Creativity, fun play, like I said, adventure, desires, all of that in life, leading your decision making, leading what you do every day with the masculine supporting it. It's a beautiful blend. That old recipe, right, from the industrial age leads to burnout, being in the masculine energy all the time. It leads to burnout when we live more often in that default masculine. Because I'm not saying don't do it, I'm saying balance it out, right? So in that default, right, masculine, we are completely out of our natural state of being in alignment, because what happens is it being in that energy and that constant, and I call it living from the neck up in your head only, not your body, is that we neglect our bodies, right? We neglect our feelings. We neglect our heart. We neglect our intuition. It shuts down. Our creativity shuts down when we're in that space way too much. Okay. So when we live by the blend of both, allowing the feminine energy and the wisdom to lead, we have a regulated, aligned, natural way of living and succeeding. Make sense? Well, that's why I invited Jen Ruiz, global travel journalist, to the podcast. Her story is a fantastic demonstration of this very thing. When life leads to burnout, and what do you do? Right? What do you do and what do you follow? Your logic, your heart, right? Your intuition, what's reasonable, what's practical, which one, right? Okay. So I know you'll love this as much as I did and how she transformed her life and career by following her joy, her intuition, her and allowed wanderlust and adventure and truth to guide her. So a very warm welcome to Jen Ruiz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Marla. What a beautiful introduction.
You're so welcome. Yeah, I'm really quite, as I said in our talk before this, I'm really excited for everybody to hear your story. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all going to love this story and what's happened for Jen. So let me give you a kind of a proper introduction, and then we're going to shoot away with the questions and your story. Yeah?
Perfect.
Okay. So Jen is a lawyer turned full-time travel content creator and author. She's a six-time Amazon best-selling author, three-time TEDx speaker, and seven-time national award-winning travel journalist. Yes, a woman after my own heart. She's been featured in the Washington Post, among many, Forbes, Daily Mail. She's a top Latina. She was named top Latina travel expert by Me Too. Maybe you can explain what that is. And the Points Guy. I love the Points Guy. Boy,
Yeah.
is he, yeah, he's just terrific. I go to him for info for sure. And Jan was the editor of Lonely Planet's Central America guidebooks and is the solo female traveler behind Jen on a Jet Plane. That's her brand. Okay, good. So, Jen, let's hear the highlights of your journey that brought you to where you are today.
Absolutely. So, as you just mentioned, I used to practice law. I practiced law for 5 years and I enjoyed it. I think it's a career that comes with instant credibility, instant prestige. When you tell somebody you're a lawyer, they look at you different. And as somebody that always looked young and being a female, I really enjoyed having that deference, having people, look at me like somebody who was to be regarded highly. It was a really addictive field. But at the same time, it was difficult. There was a lot of adversarial things in law. You're fighting people every day. And I was doing cases and representing people that I felt were kind of being taken advantage of or being, not represented well. And so it was difficult work because I really wanted to show up for those clients. And I felt like I was definitely going upstream in a system that was meant to keep them, failing. And so I'm very happy that I was able to help the people that I did through Social Security disability law, through legal aid work, through working at a felony court for a year where I worked on trials. And so I had really great work experiences, but I did think that it was heavy. It just felt like it was so
Mm,
much, and it was a heavy caseload, heavy topic, heavy emotions. Because I think to be a successful lawyer, you do kind of have to get to the point where you just shut off. And I had a hard time doing that when I see the person in front of me that I'm
mm,
representing. It's very hard to shut off when I empathize with them, when, I'm picturing, especially Social Security clients who have, they're there because they haven't had any income in years. They're a burden to their family. You're their last hope. So it was a lot of that work that
heavy.
ultimately felt like, and then sometimes outcomes are beyond your control, right? And so it feels like you can only do so much. So I'm happy that I did the work. I had over 700 cases in 5 years that I was the attorney of record on. And I'm happy that I represented the people that I did. But ultimately, it wasn't it for me. And I felt like I was more looking forward to the things that I was doing at nighttime when I was home than to my work. So I took a 12 trips in 12 months challenge the year before my 30th birthday while still employed full time, just finding a way to incorporate more travel, partly because I hadn't really done anything frivolous or for me in my 20s. I'd worked so hard that I wanted to have something young and carefree for me before that time was over forever. And also partly because I wanted to distract myself from aging and turning 30 and am I where I want to be personally? Because despite all these professional accolades, I still felt like personally I was behind. And so the trips were a distraction and a way to kind of funnel my energy into something productive that I could control, which was taking one trip every month. And it didn't really matter if that was going to be internationally, if it was going to be within the state or not. I just had this goal that I wanted to see more of the world and have more adventures and prioritize myself a little bit before this decade again was gone forever. So I took that challenge. I ended up taking almost double the trips, so 20 trips in 12 months, while still working full time. I used all my PTO. I used, sick leave
Wow.
strategically, and at the end, I ended up writing my first book about how I was able to afford the flights that I took to get to these places because most of the places I was flying to for $400 or less. And so that was how I first got featured in the Washington Post, writing an article on how I found those flights. And I didn't realize that I had inadvertently already been marketing my book just with people who had been following along the journey and wanted to know how to do it as well. So that was how my first book came about. And then once that book was successful, I decided to take the leap and transition to doing this full time because I had both a job teaching English online that was a crutch that I had that I could do remotely from anywhere. But now with the book, I also had proof of concept that my own digital products could make money.
Nice. Wow. Oh my gosh. How in the world did you do 20 trips with the caseload you had? Right? How did you do that in 12 months?
Yes,
Okay,
so
we got to hear
definitely.
yeah, behind the scenes. Come on, girl.
It did help to transition from the private law firm to legal aid because at least with legal aid, I now had the protections of government work where I had all of the federal holidays. So, like for instance, we had a day off. 4th of July that year was on a Tuesday, and I remember we got off that Monday just as a gratuitous day off because Tuesday we were already going to be off, and I was just flabbergasted because never in all the years that I'd worked in private was anybody's going to be like, here, take this extra day off because it makes sense. So you could have the whole weekend, right? Like, why would you come back just on Monday? And so never. And also because, if courthouses were closed, things like that, and we weren't open. So that was just a gift of time that I didn't have in the private practice. So just with having a government schedule, like a legitimate 9 to 5, not private practice again, where you're there till 9 p.m., midnight if you're preparing for a case, it
Okay.
was it was government work for government hours. And I think every government employee has that. You have generally a good team that people want to be there. They're tough jobs to get. People stay for a long time because you do have, I think, the closest semblance you could get to work-life balance in that setting.
Sure. Well, that answers it. Because I'm
Yes.
thinking you were in a private practice, and we all know you're working
No way.
typically 80 hours a week,
Yeah, no
right? You're
way.
married to your job. There is no time off. I'm like, how in the world did she do that?
No.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense now. Wow, that is so incredible. So, what's the name of your first book?
12 trips in 12 months.
Okay, you heard that, everyone. 12 trips in 12 months. Well, I love that title.
And
I know,
I just want to quickly, I don't want to like dismiss the legal aid work. I just think that when it comes to government work, you
yeah,
have to have those boundaries because it can be so intense that you don't want to burn people out. So I actually do enjoy government work for having weekends
I
and your
know.
evenings and
Yes.
holidays. So it sounds crazy, and I know everybody, it doesn't mean that it's any less serious or any less
No.
of important work. I just found that it was someplace where, especially because you're in a pro bono firm, you're providing these services, and so to keep this population working hard of like talented attorneys that might be enticed to go somewhere else and make more money, you get, I think, the benefits of the having that work-life balance of having a really dedicated team that actually wants to be there. So I really enjoyed the job and I have nothing but good things to say about it. I just
Yeah.
have to say that.
No, I mean, that's absolutely fine to validate it, but I really got that. I mean, me being in the work that I do to help, women have that balance, right? In the feminine, the masculine, as they're running their businesses, among other things. I mean, my first concern or my first um, priority with my women entrepreneurs is their well-being, which
Mhm.
is why I take the stand for the feminine masculine. It's like, stop doing this. It's about your well-being, and here's the solution for you. So that's why when I heard, oh no, which I didn't know this until now, when you work for the government, right, it's a 9 to 5, and you actually can have a lovely, if you will, kind of balanced life. You can actually have days off, you can have weekends off. And typically that's unheard of as an attorney, right?
Right.
Typically very unheard of. There's nothing for us to hide here. Everyone knows that. I have friends that are attorneys. I've, know people that are attorneys. It's like they don't have a life. It's 80 hours a week or more. I don't, anyway, enough said on that, but totally get that it was good work for you. It was like, kind of like the best of both worlds.
It
You got to
was.
serve in the way you wanted to serve in a time frame that still allows you to have a life.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And that made it really difficult to leave.
yeah, I would say, I would guess so. So, I mean, so talk a little bit about that. I mean, they're right there. So how, look, travel versus sitting in an office doing, not too difficult of a choice for sure. But what was when you just said, that can be a little challenging to leave. Was it the security of a paycheck? What was it?
It was, if I had wanted to continue in law, I left because I was leaving law altogether. And definitely when that time came to approach my boss about it, who was again the best boss I'd had at, I've had really great bosses all the time. I still think a lot about what I say about law because I want to only speak positively about my time there. It really just was, it was that law wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy fighting people for a living. I wanted to use those same skills that I had that made me excel in law, oral advocacy, storytelling, persuasive writing. And I wanted to use that for good. I wanted to use that. And not that I was still getting a good outcome in law, but it felt like I had to do so through such an adversarial process, through such heavy fighting all the time, mind games, all of these things.
Hmm.
Do position your chair taller than the opponent's chair when you go into a meeting. So you have like, like just little tricks and things, which is fine. And I enjoyed it. There's that book that the FBI agent wrote about the power of persuasion and the different tricks that he
Right.
learns as well. So I think it's important skills to have, but I just didn't like doing it every day because it didn't feel uplifting. It felt
Yeah.
hard. It felt
Yeah.
really difficult. And so the work that I do now feels wonderful. The work that I do now feels so much better because I'm able to use those same skills in a way that people are so genuinely grateful. And they were as well when I was an attorney, but it's just there's no friction. There's nothing at
Yeah.
all. It's not, I want to say this, it is high stakes. It's still just as important, but I don't feel like if this happens and this person's going to be, this really tragic thing that's going to happen to this person because I didn't win this case, as opposed to, whereas those stakes are on the line. Now the stakes are if I'm able to get this person publicity, how wonderful it they'll be able to, their business will succeed. They'll be able to open new locations. Like it just felt much more pleasant to
Yeah.
traffic in. And if we're talking
Good.
about, how you feel doing things, it's
Yeah.
definitely felt like less friction, just more ease and flow, and just it felt really good. It felt
Yeah.
really uplifting
Yeah.
to be able to use my platforms to give people this gift of visibility.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, there's something to say about, you know, joy. Um, you can be in your zone of genius, which is what you've explained, storytelling and oral advocacy and writing and all that and speaking. There's a lot of ways you can deliver that. There's a lot of ways that can literally be demonstrated. And it's very obvious. Look, when you're doing what you were doing in law, that energy, it's pretty, like you said, it's low energy. It's heavy. It's serious. I personally could never do that. I need something uplifting. I've always done something in my careers, my two careers. It's always about inspiration. It's always about, you know, something in the higher vibration, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, so I get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Okay.
And it's been wonderful. I've had so many great opportunities, so many interviews behind the scenes, things that are set up for me on press trips that I'd never have access to otherwise. It's just been incredible opportunities.
Yeah, that's for sure. And let's talk a little bit more about that. So follow your joy, right? The theme of the podcast, and I use the term follow your joy, success leaves clues, meaning listen to what brings you joy, right? So life strategy is not just to feel good. So talk to us then. It's a good segue here. What brings you joy? I can't imagine anything at all not fitting that in what you do. But yeah, what brings you joy in your work and your business as an entrepreneur? Yeah.
And I think like you said, in terms of clues, I think you can also track this back to what you naturally are inclined to do as a child. So I always loved exploring as a child. My mom was a teacher, and so she would take us around. I grew up in Philadelphia, and she would take us to places, even if we couldn't go far, we'd go to Amish country and we'd try the hand-churned ice cream there. We'd go to the second tallest bridge in Pennsylvania and, learn about how that was built. And so we'd have all these kind of quirky trips, and that early on really showed me that you don't have to go far to have that sense of learning. I've always enjoyed learning new things, seeing new people. That's what I love about traveling is that I feel, and people ask, like, what do you get from traveling that you don't get from home? It's that there's so much new. There's so many things out there you don't even know exist. There's, plants and traditions and, foods and, buildings, all kinds of things that you just have no idea until you go and discover it yourself. So I really enjoy finding those things. I have never been one for group projects. I have always not enjoyed them when I was in school growing up. I didn't enjoy having other people's work be, affecting my grade. And I think now that that's very much something that you've seen as a solopreneur, as a solo traveler, I like doing everything on my own and, organizing my own things and being responsible for myself and how I show up and deliver.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something that I enjoy the control of being able to have the quality of what I'm producing and being able to deliver for partners and things of the sort. And then in general, just I have always enjoyed travel. When I graduated high school, my mom took me on a 2-week trip to Europe. And instead of going through with the tour guide that already had everything, prescribed for us, I had a Europe for Dummies book. This was pre-blogs and pre-TikTok or anything like that. But I had the book and I can read. And I'm pretty sure, based off what this says, that I can get us to Stonehenge and back. And I think I can get us, to all these places. And I think we just got to follow it. It says the train is right here. It says, I think I got everything I need, Mom. And so, and this is, as a 17-year-old, and I did get us across several countries in Europe. And really, I thought we had a much better tour. I think there was one night in particular where I was like, oh, that's it, we're done. And it was we were in Italy and we were eating like frozen peas and ham at like the group dinner. And I was like, this is atrocious. We are in Italy. I bet you I could spit on a restaurant that's better than this. Like there's good restaurants everywhere. Why are we sitting here? So after that, I hijacked and took over that trip. Anytime we had any sort of leniency, I was like, we just need to be back to catch the bus to the next place. But
Yeah.
and so these have always been skills of mine that now I use to monetize and to also keep my life fresh and exciting and something to always look forward to.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, share, you just kind of gave an example, but share, I know you have dozens, especially travel. but something that, on a, because what I'm hearing is you're very resourceful. So what's happened on a trip, that you needed to think fast on your feet and change something so that it was more in alignment with who you are.
In my 12 trips in 12 months book, I talk about the Mexico disaster trip where I lost the car keys for the rental car. That
Yeah.
cost $200 to get new keys. And then there was a storm that was arriving like the day I got there and was going to be over the day I left. So it was like perfect for the trip I was there, and everything was canceled. I had planned to go and swim with whale sharks because Mexico is one of the few places you could do it. And that tour was canceled. So now it's like about to pour and there's a big tropical storm. And I'm in this Airbnb and I'm trying to find a last minute thing to do because I'm not going to just sit here on my Mexico trip. I really like, I've already had so many issues, lost the keys. I was like, we're going to redeem this somehow. And so I went and I called, down the list of places I could find. And I found one operator that said, if you get here in time, I'm happy to take you on a dive tour of the underwater museum off of the coast of Isla Mujeres. So they had an underwater museum there. You could do a small PADI certification because it's only like 60 feet or so.
Yeah.
So you could learn right then and there and go down with the scuba equipment and like a mini thing. And that's what I ended up doing. And even then, on the way back, I still had an issue where I then left my wallet behind in the locker in the shop and like a whole bunch of things. So it was just like a very flustered trip. But even despite that, I think, I don't remember like already things about the car keys, the wallet. I do remember the price because that was $200 for the keys was more than the rental itself. But um, other than that, I think those parts have been fuzzy. And like what really stays with me was it was really cool to dive the underwater museum. It was really great to have fresh ceviche afterwards that was prepared for me by this group of men at the dive shop that just made it like literally came right out of the water and onto my plate.
Wow.
And
Wow.
like, yeah, and to have everybody be so kind and welcoming and like offer me their food and, include me on their table, to stop their soccer match that they were watching on the TV so they could put on the training video for me from Patty, which I'm sure they were not thrilled about because it was the only TV to watch the soccer match. So everybody just really went out of their way. And I thought that despite everything that had gone wrong, that just shows that, you can still have these really memorable and worthwhile experiences.
Oh my
And sometimes
God.
it's the things that go wrong that lead to them.
That's right. Well, there's always, I know you're a believer in this, but there's always a gift in the challenge, right? There's always, some silver lining. You can always find that in any of those given situations, as long as you're willing to be resourceful and willing to go, okay, yeah, yeah, no, no, I'm not going to accept this. Let's turn this boat around, you know? So good.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wow. And I'm sure there's many more of those types of stories in your 12 trips and 12 months book. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Let's see. And you have, okay, since we're talking about books, so you tell us about your new book that's coming out in June.
Yes. So the sequel to 12 Trips in 12 Months, which ends, I take that year-long challenge before my 30th birthday. I decide to pursue a new career change. You think that I've gotten to the point where you're like, okay, I've fallen in love with myself and my life. I did all the necessary work, and then I met literally a guy whose name is Mr. Prince. And we end up dating for 2 years, during the pandemic, and you think this is it. And then I end up getting dumped on my 35th birthday on a sponsored cruise in the middle of the Mediterranean, the same day that my Facebook is hacked. So everything goes wrong at once. We still have to share a cabin afterwards. I still have to take pictures because this is a sponsored cruise and I'm there to work and he's there as my plus one. And so after that, we end up splitting ways. He goes to see friends in Spain and I go to Egypt where I had planned to go the year prior, but we canceled because he got COVID. So I go to Egypt because I really want to see this through. You already ruined my Egypt trip once. I'm not going to let you ruin it for me twice. And when I get to Egypt, I find a magic scarab in a temple that has wish granting powers. And so, as somebody who knows that when you're making a wish, you really got to pick one wish. You can't wish for more than one thing. So I was at a crossroads where I could either wish for my boyfriend back or my Facebook account back. And I really need to emphasize that, like, it sounds frivolous, but when your business is social media, Facebook is meta. They own the Meta Business Suite. They also own Instagram. That means everything that you're doing is linked through Facebook. You have other accounts that are linked through Facebook for your access payment methods. I mean, it is a nightmare, and there is absolutely no way. Now they've since launched the verification program, but even that, good luck getting back a hacked account. They just don't have the means to do that. And so this was pretty serious. So I had the choice to either wish for my boyfriend back or my Facebook account back. And I will say that miraculously, 2 weeks later, I am the only person I know to have ever recovered a hacked Facebook account.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. There's an intuitive angle to this. So, what was the intuition in this
Well,
story?
first, knowing what wish to make and where I really wanted my priorities to be and what was important for me. So knowing that you can't force certain things that are not, you can't force love. You can't force somebody to want you to see the value in you, which is something that I've always done as a high performing woman, right? Like if I help you with your business, because he was in the
Yeah.
travel business, then maybe you'll see what a valuable person I would be as a partner, right? And I think that that's where that masculine energy comes in of performing and doing versus being. But then the rest of that year too really turned into that journey of, okay, now we have a different 12 trips challenge that I had already scheduled in promotion of 12 of the book, 12 trips in 12
Yeah.
months. That book got pushed to the next year, which at the time, you thought was devastating, but actually gave me the time to recover from everything that was happening before going on a book tour.
Mm.
But then I already had these trips set up. So these ended up being really transformative trips, having pizza cooked on a volcano in Guatemala, where I got to work with kind of that power of a volcano in general and that fiery energy and burning things to the ground, where it felt like at a time where I'm emptying my life of things to make way for what's going to grow from there, because volcanic soil is some of the most fertile. And then from there to Japan, where I attended a kintsugi class, and that was so meaningful because it involved a lesson that I still have the dish behind me. Actually, here it sits behind me in my desk to
Yeah.
always remind me that you are more valuable, you are more beautiful because of your flaws than you are. Your point is not to get through life with a dish in the original manufactured condition. And the art of kintsugi takes a dish that's been broken, aggrandizes the crack, makes it so you notice it more, and then paints it in gold. So now that crack is a distinct pattern through which the gold shines. And it's meant to be a metaphor for you as a human to continue on with your cracks, understanding that it's part of your story and what makes you unique and
Mm.
much more valuable than that original manufactured dish. And so that was a really, beautiful, transformative, necessary experience for me. I went to Rapa Nui, Easter Island, where I was with the Moai. I mean, these giant mystical statues that in and of themselves are said to hold the power of their burial statues. So each one is said to hold the power of the important clans person that it was modeled after. And they're, meant to be
Mhm.
protectors of the island. So that being in the middle of being in the out so far away from anything else in the world, feeling like you're in the middle of like this paradise. And
Mm.
that was a very mystical, intuitive place to be. And then finally, towards the end of the year, going to Rwanda, where I ended up trekking with gorillas. And then I
Yeah.
saw a newborn baby gorilla that was born hours prior and that I took as a good omen regarding some health concerns that I was having at the time.
So, to circle back and connect the dots, so you were saying the intuition part of the story, since intuition obviously is core to this platform, right? Follow your joy, listen to your intuition. Was you knowing what to listen to make the decision on what the wish would be, and as a result of that, everything else kind of what you just explained fell into place.
Yeah, I think all of those experiences helped me hone my intuition. So that's why I mentioned them because each one had a different impact. The volcano had a different impact than the kintsugi, that had a different impact than the moai, that had a different impact than the gorillas. But each one were a chance for me to get closer to where I am, really feel more at peace that what's happening is what's meant to be happening. Just get through that transition. Like this really was a point of burning my entire life down and starting it over. So it's nothing but intuition and faith that gets you through when you have nothing else in those moments. And so those travel experiences were those anchors where I felt like I could really see that. I could visualize it. I could hold it. I could have an experience around it, and feel like it's tangible.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this. So by the situation where the guy dumped you, you decide to, I'm going to save my business because it relies on Facebook and Instagram, you name it, right? So that's going to be my wish. As a result of that time in life, that juncture in life, it was time for reinvention. It was time for transformation. And so when you said hone in on your intuition, so when you continued with your journeys and the travel, each one of those trips helped hone in your intuition that helped you also along the way of transformation, getting to know who Jen was more, what really lit her up, what's going to be the next several years of her life. What is that what we're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
though you make it sound more graceful than it is, I really felt like I was just walking in the dark. And so it was that hope for the next experience, that little glimmer that I got, that kept it going because it felt to me like I was just stumbling. And so having these things really helped me
Yeah.
just have that extra, like a gulp of water when you're in the desert trying to get through.
Yeah.
And because it was hard, it was a really difficult period. It was burning down everything. It was every bit of stability that I had built. It was leaving the island where I was born and I thought I had returned and now, I was meant to be there. So it was really not having any idea why things are happening the way that they are, not having any idea what's happening next, trying to trust the process,
Yes.
trying to have, my intuition be the right thing. Like,
Mm,
where am I going to move? Is it
yeah.
the right thing to pursue this? What is going on? And so all of these experiences were just, like I said, like a drink of water in the desert, but it did not feel like I was strolling through a meadow. It
Oh
definitely
God,
felt
no.
like I was, yeah.
Well, no, and thank you for, I mean, really defining that because following your intuition is never predictable. It's not supposed to be. When we follow our intuition, it only comes in bite-sized pieces. It doesn't give you the whole vision. So that's where the trust comes in and the faith that says, what? Do what? As you're listening to your intuition or that gut instinct or that message or whatever, however it comes through you. And it's always sensations in the body. It's little whispers, it's what have you. And again, you just I call it following the breadcrumbs, right? You literally one step, the next step, and it can be scary. It can be like, well, okay, what is our brain, which, likes to be in control, bless our brain, but this is not a place for the brain. This is a place for intuition and transformation and higher power and spirituality and trust and faith and all that. It's not comfortable at all. It's not meant to be comfortable. So, yeah, you said it. It's like, what do I do? Where do I go? Okay, oh, all right. I'll
Yeah,
trust that. Okay, let's see where that's going to lead. Yeah,
exactly.
beautiful. I love that. Okay. So again, so your next book that comes out, the name of it is
All you need is flights.
All You Need Is Flights, everybody, as in travel the airplane. So
Yes.
what does that capture?
Yeah, so ideally, my goal is to help empower women who are feeling like they're at that point of transition in their lives, like they want to know what the next step is. And I think it's really hard to figure that out in your daily bubble, in your own routine, in your own mind and anxiety, and, all of the things that can be your own prison. And that's why I love traveling. That's what addicted me to it in the first place, was that I felt like alive. I mean, everybody says, Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now. I've read that book however many times, and I still just have a really hard time being in the present. I think again, a lot of high achieving women do because we're multitaskers. We're constantly worrying about what's next and what we have to do and
Yeah.
keeping on our schedule. Like it's really tough to find quiet in the mind, and it's tough to find just like presence, that ability to just be in the moment and enjoying the moment without thinking about what you have to do next, the past, if you did this right or not,
Yeah.
and so travel to me was that hack, that ability to do that because you have no choice when you land in a completely new atmosphere that you do not know, especially as a woman. You have to be vigilant. And so, because of that, you're being bombarded with new sounds, new smells, new
Yeah.
sights, new everything. So, all your senses are working to process all this new information. And by default, it means that you are present. It means you're in the moment, right? You're smelling the
Yeah.
smells of this new country. You're taking everything in. You're hearing what people are saying. And so, it means that you don't really have the ability. Your senses are already so flooded and so focused on that that you don't have the ability to be in your brain in the same way you would at home when you go into autopilot while
Yeah.
driving or doing the dishes or anything that you do regularly. So it's a way to force yourself to be present. It's a way to have clarity because maybe when you're in it, you don't see it as well as when you're halfway across the world from it. And then you decide this does matter, this doesn't matter, this is what I want to pursue, this isn't what I want to pursue. I want to let this go, I want to keep this. All of these are questions that you can answer with a little bit of space, distance, the ability to really reflect yourself without feeling like you owe anybody anything or you're immediately, responsible for anybody or accountable to anybody. And
Mm.
so I just think it gives you breathing room and an escape and the ability to actually be in your body, which is something that we don't get to do because we are always in our heads because we are busy.
That's the feminine. Right, as I explained sure in the beginning today, is that the feminine of life is from the neck down. It's your body, right? If you look at masculine from the neck up, it's just your head, right? Which is again, it's not gender anybody. It's you're in your brain, you're in your logic, you're using your intellect and all of that. But yes, what you're saying is yeah, the feminine of life is being in the present, listening to your body, listening to what it's telling you. Hey, what's the pain? What's the fear? Listen to the heart. What's the feelings? What's the vibes? Right? So that's for sure the feminine. So all you need is flights. Is it like a guide for women to be in the present through travel?
It's a memoir about that year.
Oh,
So with memoir, the goal is to share or enlighten a universal message through a particular story.
got
So
it.
similar to Under the Tuscan Sun,
Yeah.
where she's going and she's having this universal message about reinvention, about moving abroad, about life after a certain age, and so that's universal themes that other people can see for themselves, but it's done through this
Story.
story that has a start and end time. It's not a biography where it's the entire life of the author.
Sure.
It's a particular journey, similar with Eat, Pray, Love or Wild, where she has that year sabbatical or hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. And so it has a start and end time. And hopefully through that story, it elucidates broader themes, universal themes that other people can relate to and find inspiration for their own
Oh
lives.
my gosh. Okay. I need to get that. It sounds wonderful. Okay, and everybody, that comes out in June of this year. So be looking for it on Amazon. Okay, let's see what's next before we finish up here. Um, all right, yeah, why don't you give our, entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs and some of the men that listen to this is what type of life or business advice, right, are you known for? What would you like to tell? And I call them my creative entrepreneurs. Everybody's creative in my world. So yeah, what kind of advice would you like to give them?
Well, people always ask me how they can get paid to travel. And I think that there's a lot of uncertain advice regarding that online. And so I like to just share with people one easy, legitimate way that they can get paid to travel without having to sell trips, without having to join an MLM, without having to grow a huge social media following, just somebody who has travel expertise. And that's with freelance travel writing. And so if you're somebody who has expertise about where you live, about where you grew up, about a place that you visit frequently, about a particular topic, national park visits, solo travel, RV travel, cruising, whatever the case may be, you can leverage that skill set and you can publicize it in articles that you then get paid for either a flat fee or per word. And you can do this on the side with a full-time job. I got started writing travel articles for Paste magazine specifically. You know, my very first article was about a staycation because I wasn't traveling anywhere. This was when I was still at the private firm. And then I wrote about Philadelphia, where I grew up, because I grew up there. So I know a lot of things about it. So I already have that expertise, even if I'm not currently traveling. And then when I did start to travel, I was able to use that position to get press trips and get invited places as a member of the media that would then cover this particular destination
Yeah.
or brand in the outlet. So I think it's a great way for somebody who wants to get into the travel field, who wants to actually make money from doing it, and
Right.
who wants to do it in a way where they don't have to be in front of the camera, where they don't have to like, it's just easy, right? Because it's based off of what you know and how you can put this in a compelling story as a publicist, you're aware, but how you can phrase this in a way that the outlet's going to be like, oh, this is great. This is going to drive views and traffic to our website. We would love to commission you to write this for us.
Yeah. And I found this because I'm on your newsletter, and those of you, I really recommend opting into your newsletter, which we'll get to in just a moment. And that is, you gave in the last newsletter I read, you gave three different, if I remember correctly, three different ways to get paid as a writer. Travel. And I know one was travel, what travel magazine was that? The main one. Doesn't matter. There were three of them. And I went, oh wow, how cool is that? She's giving you links to go look at. Here's some opportunities to go write and travel. So yeah, very good on that. You also mentioned too that as far as advice is about start living today and pursuing things that make you happy and don't look externally. Talk a little bit about that.
And that's still a hard one for me because, as I mentioned, with law, you had that instant credibility, you had the way that people regarded you.
Yeah.
And I felt like when I switched to doing this field where people are not sure what it is I do, they ask me, how do you even make money? Initially, that's why I thought I had to work so hard to meet these milestones of having a TEDx talk, of being traditionally published and being offered a book deal so that people would take me seriously. And I think I've learned once I've achieved all of these things that it actually didn't matter. People didn't see it one way or another. It's really about how I feel and if I take myself seriously.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's something that I've learned, that external accomplishments only get you so far, and that whether you win or lose any particular award, because I've won my fair share, and it's still, you always put the next goal, or you always still have
Mhm.
that imposter syndrome. So ultimately, you have to tell yourself, like, no, I was worthy of it. Even if I didn't get it and that person won it, I still did really great work. I still, deserve that title as well. Like, kudos to me. And so I think it's really come to the point where I've started to, yeah, just be my own cheerleader and realize that the happiness doesn't come from the trophies or the medals or winning things. And so, because once you do get that, and I have gotten, again, my fair share, like, what are you still unhappy? And if that's the case, then what are you actually chasing? What is the point of chasing these awards if they're not making you happy? The point of anything in life, people chasing money, people chasing relationships, people chasing the dream job, is because they want to be happy. And so if you reach all these things and they don't make you happy, that means that your source of happiness has to come from elsewhere, usually from inside, which is the hardest thing to control when you have self-doubt and you have external comparisons or things like that. So I've just tried to prioritize that, especially this past year where it was just everything's been really heavy. And so I have tried to prioritize things like in my spare time, watching uplifting like comedy shows, just to have
Mhm.
something that makes me feel happy. Having my dog, I got a dog, so that I can look forward to training with him. So I've really tried very hard, very diligently
Yeah.
to find that validation and that joy from myself, and not from others.
Beautiful. I love that. That's really kind of the whole message here. Um, as I was saying in the beginning, is I love advocating and teaching how to redefine your success metrics, which is exactly what you've just said. Is okay, instead of looking at the number of followers and okay, I'm not saying the bank account's not important, everybody. It's very important. But instead of identifying your joy and happiness by a bank account, by followers on Instagram, by all these outside metrics that can change in an instant, right? your success metric of joy, of well-being, of okay, intuition, obviously, friendships, connection, freedom. I mean, whatever those metrics are, that's what I am, standing here for. That's what you are. It's like, okay, it comes from within everybody. Comes from within. So, yes, you've got the awards. Yes, you've got the books. Yes, you've got the TEDx, and those are fantastic, right? Really terrific. However, when it comes to pure joy, pure happiness, it can only come from inside, only come from you, right? I know it's kind of a trite thing to say, but I will never stop saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's why
beautiful.
I think you have to aggressively fight for it too, because it's so easy to fall again to I just
Yes.
think you don't need to feed negativity and you do kind of need to feed positivity, right? When you're in a
Yeah.
funk, you can ruminate over something and nothing else can happen and you can actually get angrier or more in a
Yeah.
funk if you allow yourself to like dwell in it. Whereas positivity, sometimes you'll be like, oh, I just won this great thing. But then all this like, possible imposter syndrome comes up. So like the next day you're already like thinking about the next goal
Yeah.
and you need to constantly be winning and constantly be feeding positivity things to like keep positivity growing. So it's harder to grow positivity. That's why so many people fall to negativity because
Mhm.
it grows on its own and
Yeah.
it amplifies on its own and it's like comfortable to be in
Mhm.
misery. And so you have to work to be happy and to be positive. And I think travel's an easy hack. And for me, I've been really working on how to replicate that and find that same joy at home when I don't have a brand new, beautiful place that I'm exploring where
Right.
it's easy to be happy and present and in
So
the
what do you
moment.
do?
Exactly. So
What,
that's my latest challenge.
so my question is, what are the tools? And these are things, of course, that I teach, right, in my courses, is having tools to recenter, having tools to ground you, having those mindset, tools, spiritual tools. So what do you use? What does Jen use? Since this is a current, you're learning this about you. What do you use at home to recenter Jen and get her out of her head and the way that our brain works, which is always from the past, which is always this old loop that keeps every day the same old story. It's doing its job, but you get to have control over that. What do you do?
Yeah, definitely working out has been a big one for
Right?
me, just having a physical outlet for my body. And
Great.
that's always been a stabilizer. When I was taking the bar, that's how I would break up my day of studying, 3 hours in the morning, work out at noon, and then 3 hours in the afternoon, so that you don't have overload. So I
Yeah.
think having physical movement, whatever it is helpful. And same thing with the walks with my dog now. He breaks up my day. So I have to go on a walk and I have to enjoy the weather. Like it just feels like, even though it does feel like I have to break away from whatever it is I'm doing, especially as an entrepreneur who can be on a computer for hours on end. And so sometimes I get into a flow, but like my dog can't wait. Like he has to go. And so it does feel like a have to versus a get to. But it is, I think, important. I need to be outside more. And I was always somebody that if I'm not traveling, I'm not meeting like my step goals and I'm not like seeing the sunshine. It's so easy to
Right.
just be on the computer. So my dog allows me to do that. Mindful, like cooking and eating. I really enjoy taking the time to make nice things for myself, get fresh local ingredients, and just take the moment to eat and enjoy in silence. That's really nice because I love food. And so,
Good.
yeah, and so all of those things, and then trying to also get some social support and circles, which can be difficult with a travel schedule. But I've joined a book club. I have, a group of content creator women here in the area that I know, and they have events all the time. So I try to be present and go to as many things locally as I can too, even though that's someplace that I still need to work a little bit more on.
Yeah. Do you have any spiritual practices? And what I mean by that is, meditation, yoga, journaling, those types of things.
Um,
And if you don't, it's fine. I'm just curious if.
I do yoga, but mainly more things like if I see something like if I see like a red firefly or something like that, I'll look to see what that means. I've seen a lot of rabbits, which like signify taking the leap. And so like I look to see like what are the signs, what are the wildlife that
Good.
comes by, what are the things that kind of pop into my view that the universe
Yes.
wants me to see, and how can I translate that. I also go a lot by the moon cycles, kind of what's happening in astrology. Right now we're going into a retrograde, and so that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do anything, but I look at it like just knowing the weather. Like if I know that there's a
Yeah.
storm coming, I'm not going to wear an all white outfit. And so if I know that this is retrograde, I'm not going to necessarily start a new contract with a brand new company I've never heard of before. I actually bought a car during retrograde that year when I moved, and it ended up being a complete lemon like the moment I
Oh
drove it off the
no.
lot. Yeah, it was, but I was able to get it returned. Thankfully, it all worked out. But yeah, that just goes to show where I do believe like it's just a knowing how to sidestep the minefield kind of thing. And so
Got it.
at least this way you know where the mines are. And so that's what I think knowing more about astrology gives me, is that sense of like, oh, and everybody, as much as people don't understand it, it's really substantiated in so many different fields. All the
Yeah.
medical professionals say when there's a full moon, people go crazy. Like they know the ER is going to be wild.
We're
Um,
connected. We're connected to everything here. So it's quantum physics. That's you can't argue with that. When the moon's that way, we're going to be affected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I try to just be very aware and very
Yeah.
cognizant of that. And I try to take those messages and then internalize them and be like, okay, well, what does it mean
Cool.
that I've been seeing this a lot?
Lovely.
Or how can I apply this lesson? Like, what do I feel like the universe is trying to tell me right now? And sometimes maybe it is, reassuring me that this is a good leap to
Yeah.
take, that everything's going to be okay, that you can start something new. Even just moving into my new apartment, I look to see what is that number of the unit that I'm in, and what does that number signify
Good.
in
Yeah.
numerology and things like that. So yes, it's ever present, but in a way that I don't even know how to begin describing because it's so intricate to like every detail of my life. So it's not just necessarily meditation or
Yeah.
yoga or anything like that, but it's really more how I conduct myself in terms of what I feel like is the universe's plan for me,
Got it.
also mixed with my own.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay. All right. So let's have you share where can Follow Your Joy community, where can they find you online?
Yes, so you can find me at my website, jenonajetplane.com. It's like leaving on a jet plane, Jen on a jet plane, and Jen only has one N. And then I'm on all social media channels under that same handle at Jen on a jet plane. And then I have a Substack for anybody that's interested in actually the business side of this, and that's jetplanecrew.substack.com.
Oh, fantastic. And you also have an Amazon store.
I do, yes. That
Yes.
doesn't have an easily accessible handle because I can't customize my Amazon store handle. But if you look on Amazon, Jen Ruiz, you'll find all my books there.
Well, we're going to put all that in the show notes, honey, so that
Excellent.
you all will have a link to that and in every all her other contacts on that. Okay, and then lastly, how can um, this community receive something kind of cool from you?
Absolutely. So I think you're going to be sharing the link for this. It's a
Yeah,
5-day free travel writer challenge. So if you are somebody that's been interested in becoming a travel writer, but you're not sure where to start, this is the number one question I get. The
yeah,
way to start is by sending your idea in the form of a pitch to an editor, right? An editor cannot assign you an article that they don't know that you want to write. So you have to tell them, hey, this is the article I want to write. Would you want to assign that to me? And I teach you how to draft that pitch. I go through the who, what, where, when, and why, the format. I put in a template of a pitch that you can follow and also a screenshot of a pitch that has worked for me. So I take you through everything. So by the end, hopefully, you know how you can get started and how you can send out your article idea to an editor looking to commission that. It's the
yeah.
5-day travel writer challenge, and the link will be on your platform.
Oh my gosh, that's really, really terrific. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's called Master the Perfect Travel Pitch in 5 days. Learn how to craft a compelling freelance travel writing pitch that gets editors to say yes. Yeah, that's a good one. I already signed up for it. So it's probably waiting for me in my email box. So you can access that through, as you know, the Portal of Joy. So you will have in the show notes as normal the link to the Portal of Joy. And what that means is once you opt in, name and email address, you will then have access to not only Jen's gift, which I think is incredibly helpful. But all the other ones in there, it's like, have at it. It's this treasure trove from all the guests, I've had on the podcast that had what we call a vetted, valuable gift to give you. So opt in, go grab Jen's, 5-day challenge and get to writing. Yes. I love it. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, I could talk forever on this topic of travel. Gosh, we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Likewise, Marla, I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody. So you heard it here from Jen about, live life now, right? Listen to within, listen to what's going on versus what's out there. Okay. And use travel for transformation. You've heard this before, those of you that have listened. There's an actual term in the industry called transformational travel. There's an actual company and organization about transformational travel. I think you can even become a coach for that too. Point is, travel is transformational. It's phenomenal. And Jen, I think, is a wonderful example of that. So, all right. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Go grab her freebie, and we'll see you in the next episode, everybody. Be well and be blessed. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for listening. You can find more entrepreneurial stories and resources at marladiane.com. And while you're there, enjoy my free downloads to up-level your business and your life. And Instagram. It's my favorite place to hang out. Let's connect there. If you received inspiration from the episode, I'd sure appreciate a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Until next episode, take care.